Ah, buenos días, Susan. ¿Cómo estás? Hello, everyone. How you doing today? My Spanish teacher, Senora Suarez, would be so embarrassed of me. My Spanish is nearly non-existent now, but I do know that much. Ah, Mariah, Mary, Teresa, Cassie, Marie. Hello, 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 ladies. Hmm. Well, it's Monday, isn't it? Need to start the day with coffee and well, at least coffee. But so, did everyone have a good weekend? Anything exciting, wonderful, something out of the ordinary? It certainly is Monday. Yeah, I'm just having a hard time myself, just kind of revving up to everything. But at least it is lovely outside today. The sun's out. It's cool temperatures, and so I'll probably do some working out here rather than stay in the house the whole day. Um, but we'll see what the governor has to say and how things may start to open up as the week goes on. I'm not sure if you can hear it. We have at least three pairs of cardinals that live in the trees right around our house. So they are usually chirping early every morning, and one's being quite loud right now. Can't quite see him, but boy, I can hear him. That's kind of the joy directly behind our house. So let's, while we're waiting for folks to show up, let me give you some directions. That way is I-4. That way is the eyesore on I-4. And that way is about 10 acres of just trees and wonderful Florida scrub where we have possums and raccoons and lots of squirrels, hawks, all kinds of critters. Snakes. The snakes are back out and they're sunning themselves out in the backyard. Let's see. What do we have? Mariah has noisy blue jays. Mark has hummingbirds. And wow, your mom was able to access St. John from South Carolina. Oh, that was wonderful. I'm glad she's staying safe and doing well, Mary. That's great news. Yeah, we had folks yesterday. Mark took a list. Um, some people from Michigan, Maryland, South Carolina, um, several other states. So we're picking up more and more people, which is good. And like I mentioned, we've got people. I think it's 4 families now who are interested in joining, and we've had other folks who have been reconnecting with St. John who've been gone for a while. So um, we're doing well. So hey Sheila, good to see you again. So back, Sheila's dad doing well. I think you had mentioned he's back in rehab now. So that would continue to be good news. Set my books over here. Oh, hang on. All right, there. I'm back again. Oh, that's good news about your dad. That's excellent. Excellent. So, and Ross. Ah, So well, it's nice to see people rolling in because on a Monday's not my best day. But I've also found out that because Monday's not my best day, Monday's not a good day for me to take off. I've got friends who take Mondays off. Hey Pam, good to see you too. Yeah, Mondays I'm better off working than I am at trying to take a day off. It just never goes well. So, well, good. Got my trusty Mickey mug, which actually on the inside, see if I can show this to you right there. Mornings aren't pretty. Carlos got one that has Minnie. So we got this match set a number of years ago. And needless to say, as Disney fans, we are chomping at the bit to be able to get back into the parks and hope things will reopen there yet this year. That would be good. We'll, again, like I said earlier, we'll see what the governor has to say and how things may open up. So, all right. Well, we are at 6 after, which is usually when we start up with devotions. So let me go ahead and open things up here. And for the Monday of the week of Easter 3. So the way the church calendar kind of works is we break things up into seasons. And so we are in the season of Easter. And we're coming to the close of that before, well, we got a little bit of time yet. It'll be in end of May we switch over to Pentecost. But this continues on in John, 1 John chapter 3 is where we're at. And we'll pick up there, chapter 3, verse 19, and go into chapter 4. 1 John chapter 4 is one of those very well-known chapters in which John expands on God is love. And in some of the words in chapter 4 have been incorporated into the liturgy. So, again, a little bit of church trivia. I'm good at that. So with that being said, the Lord be with you and also with you. Let us pray. God our Father, your light of truth guides us in the way of Christ. May all who follow him reject what is contrary to the gospel. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. So we're going to pick up 1 John chapter 3, starting in verse 19. And again, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John are likely actual letters that the Apostle John wrote, again, probably later in his age, to Christians. We aren't precisely sure where. Probably somewhere in what was then called Asia Minor. Today, we call that region of the world Turkey. That's where John, according to church tradition, lived in his later years and is buried somewhere there. So here we go. 1 John chapter 3, starting in verse 19. By this we shall know that we are of the truth, and reassure our hearts before him whenever our hearts condemn us. For God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Beloved, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God, and we receive from him whatever we ask, because we keep his commandments and do what pleases him. And this is his commandment, that we should believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, just as he commanded us. All who keep his commandments abide in him, and he in them. And by this we know that he abides in us, by the Spirit which he has given us. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are of God, for many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every gift, every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit which does not confess Jesus is not of God. This is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have heard is coming, and is now in the world already. Little children, you are of God and have overcome them. For he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. They are of the world, and therefore what they say is of the world, and the world listens to them. We are of God. Whoever knows God listens to us, and he who is not of God does not listen to us. By this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error. That phrase Antichrist comes up every now and then when folks kind of take a new liking or new interest in the book of Revelation. And something to keep in mind is 1st, 2nd, 3rd John and the Gospel of John are all likely written by the Apostle John. And part of that is you can tell by the style of reading or the style of writing. It's a little bit like Max Lucado's book here. Once you've read Max Lucado, and if you enjoy it, there's no mistaking his style of writing. You could pick up another book and start reading and go, oh, wow, this sounds just like Max. Writers have particular styles. The book of Revelation is attributed to a writer by the name of John the Elder. Not the same John at all. The writing style is vastly different. The Gospel of John in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John is someone who writes very fluently and elegantly in Greek. To use modern day terminology, it's someone who has, at least high school, college age English lit. The writer of the book of Revelation, 6th grade, terrible grammar, terrible proofreading, entire words are dropped. It's a mess. So it is included in the Bible, but it's not the same John. It's a different John. But speaking of Max and John, let's move on in Max's book to part 2, which are the readings for tools on the anvil. So I'm going to start in chapter 14, which kind of is the introduction to these particular reflections. And so chapter 14, On the Anvil. With a strong forearm, the apron-clad blacksmith puts his tongs into the fire, grasps the heated metal, and places it on the anvil. His keen eye examines the glowing piece. He sees what the tool is now and envisions what he wants it to be. Sharper, flatter, wider, longer. With a clear picture in his mind, he begins to pound. His left hand is still clutching the hot mass with the tongs. His right hand slams the 2-pound sledge into the moldable material. On the solid anvil, the smoldering iron is remolded. The smith knows the type of instrument he wants. He knows the size. He knows the shape. He knows the strength. Whang, whang, the hammer slams. The shop rings with noise. The air fills with smoke, and the softened metal responds. But the response doesn't come easily. It doesn't come without discomfort. To melt down the old and recast it as new is a disrupting process. Yet the metal remains on the anvil, allowing the tool maker to remove the scars, repair the cracks, refill the voids, and purge the impurities. And with time, a change occurs. What was dull becomes sharpened. What was crooked becomes straight. What was weak becomes strong. And what was useless becomes valuable. Then the blacksmith stops. He ceases his pounding and sets down the hammer. With a strong left arm, he lifts the tongs until the freshly molded metal is at eye level. In the still silence, he examines the smoking tool. The incandescent implement is rotated and examined for any mars or cracks. There are none. Now the smith enters the final stage of his task. He plunges the smoldering instrument into the nearby bucket of water. With a hiss and a rush of steam, the metal immediately begins to harden. The heat surrenders to the onslaught of cool water, and the pliable, soft mineral becomes an unbending, useful tool. A reading from 1 Peter chapter 1. For a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. And then chapter 15, Anvil time. On God's anvil. Perhaps you've been there. Melted down, formless, undone, placed on the anvil for reshaping. A few rough edges, too many. Discipline. A good father disciplines. Testing. But why so hard? I know, I've been on it. It's rough. It's a spiritual slump, a famine. The fire goes out. Although the fire may flame for a moment, it soon disappears. We drift downward into the foggy valley of question, the misty lowland of discontentment. Motivation wanes, desire is distant, responsibilities are depressing. Passion, it slips out the door. Enthusiasm, you've got to be kidding. Anvil time. It can be caused by a death, a breakup, going broke, going prayerless. The light switch is flipped off and the room darkens. All the thoughtful words of help and hope have been nicely said, but I'm still hurting, wondering, on the anvil. Brought face to face with God out of the utter realization that we have nowhere else to go. It's Jesus in the garden, Peter with a tear-streaked face, David after Bathsheba, Elijah in the still small voice, Paul blind in Damascus. Pound, pound, pound. I hope you're not on the anvil, unless you need to be, and if so, I hope you are. Anvil time is not to be avoided, it's to be experienced. Although the tunnel is dark, it does go through the mountain. Anvil time reminds us of who we are and who God is. We shouldn't try to escape it. To escape it could be to escape God. God sees our life from beginning to end. He may lead us through a storm at the age of 30 so we can endure a hurricane at age 60. An instrument is useful only if it's in the right shape. A dull axe or a bent screwdriver needs attention, and so do we. A good blacksmith keeps his tools in shape, and so does God. Should God place you on his anvil, be thankful. It means he thinks you're still worth reshaping. How's that? Like I said, there's different sections here, and we skip some of the ones of the useless tools. But, certainly at this point, reshaping is what's going on for many of us. So we'll see what the governor says about how the state is reshaping and reopening, but it certainly has been a time of reshaping for many of us in jobs, in life, certainly a time of reshaping as St. John Lutheran Church and who we are and how we've been formed and how we're being reformed. I still have no idea what's coming next. I know we are continuing to make progress in reshaping how we do ministry, but even little bits and pieces crop up as to how our perspectives are changing. I particularly like the On the Anvil image because one of our favorite shows to watch, and we discovered it, I want to say about 3 years ago. It's called Forged in Fire. It's on the History Channel, and it's about weaponsmiths who make edged weapons primarily, so knives, swords, spears, things like that. And so the contest is, it's like so many other competition shows. You have 4 people, and then they have different challenges, and they go from 4 to 3 to 2, and then the 2 go head to head, and then you win $10,000. It's a format on Food Network and History Channel and so many others. But it's fun to watch these guys work on forges and anvils and create something new out of fire. So yeah, Ben, I personally feel called out by much of the anvil analogy. Would you remind us where it came from? So yes, On the Anvil, Max Lucado. But it would not surprise me, and this was written, what did I say, 94? Oh no, it's a whole lot longer than that. 85 is when it was written. I think it was given to me, it was given to me in 99 by my secretary. But I'm sure Max is watching Forged in Fire, because that's kind of the whole progression, that image, to be able to watch these people, forge these different weapons, and then they have to go through tests. And if you watch the show much, it doesn't take long for you to pick up where a flaw is, because they'll take a knife and they'll whack it against fuel cans and ropes, and they'll have whole hogs, and you'll take a sword and you'll see if you can cut through it, and those type of things. I mean, they're made to be real working weapons. But boy, when one fails, it can be just a small little flaw in the blade, and when it hits, you see it snap, and it's fascinating to watch. And so the church is constantly adapting on the forge, and where we go from here and how we are being reshaped. It's fascinating. The ELCA over the weekend sent out a new form for how to calculate worship attendance in light of most congregations now streaming. So one of the things the ELCA does, like any organization, is they keep statistics, and statistics are only so helpful. It's a little bit like here at St. John. Prior to all this, if you were to count how many people attend every Sunday, it comes out to about 160, give or take, on any given Sunday. However, if you were to record how many people attend at least once a month in worship, and again, we'll make this prior to January, so prior to 2020, if you did it by once a month, it's closer to 250. So in the last 4 years, our once a month attendance, I'll say in the last 4 years, our every Sunday attendance has stayed pretty much about the same. 160, 170, right in that range. If you look at how many people attend once a month, we're up 33%. And that's been pretty consistent all the way through. So the thing is, who's really active? Who is really attending? Depends how you crunch the numbers. For any of us who watch the news, everyone's crunching numbers any which way. So in looking at worship now, the numbers that they're using is how many people are recorded as watching a Sunday morning service, recognizing that's, for like right now, there's 22 of you who are watching on YouTube Studio. Now, I know for many of you, there's more than one person watching. So the ELCA and what we have been working with is you just simply double that number, because particularly on Sundays, there can be anywhere from 2 to 5 people. In fact, I know at least, I think in a few households, there's even more than that, because they'll put up, I know Ed and Anita put it up on their large screen TV and have most of the kids over. So you say at least 2 people per screen. Well, that means on Sundays right now, we've been pretty much averaging 205 to 225 a Sunday. And that's just watching right then. The ELCA then also says, well, add in how many additional folks watch in during the course of the week. Well, then somehow magically, if you work by those numbers, everyone who's been attending at least once a month, but not every Sunday, is now attending every Sunday. Plus, we are drawing in folks from farther away who are now part of the community. So on the Anvil, we're having to kind of rethink, what does community look like? Those who are involved in part of the community as members, is that necessarily a geographic thing, or is our connection to a congregation something that's bigger than space and distance? So that's an interesting thing for us to be wrestling with. And I think it's a good thing, because one thing that's clear, this is not going to change. My prediction even now is, if let's see, I think it's Friday, maybe May 1st. I think Friday is the first day the shelter in place order by the governor is lifted. And by all indications, that's not going to get extended, so it'll get lifted. I'm still expecting for at least another year, 25 to 33% easily of our weekly attendance when we go back to not having to social distance and can worship again as a group in the sanctuary. Now, a quarter to a third of the people who worship every week are going to be worshiping digitally rather than in the space. And we're going to need to count both. It's, again, the ELCA has finally recognized that what you and I are doing right now is not a passive experience. It's an active one. Is in-person preferable? Absolutely. So life is going to be interesting. Now, speaking of interactive experiences, I mentioned this last week. I mentioned again during the announcements yesterday. Mark and I are going to be talking about this later today. We're going to get together and catch up on some of the technology things. One thing you may have noticed yesterday is the sound quality, particularly the organ, was much better. Mark has some new software that is creating a whole different. It plays nicer with the soundboard, so the sound is so much better. So be sure to let him know how that went yesterday. But I think some of that tech is going in the right direction. But one of the things we're going to talk about and set up is if he and I can work out the details, we will send out something later today for our first congregational happy hour this Wednesday at 7. So it will be BYOB, so bring your own beverage, and we will set it up on Zoom. That works best. That works best for this, because we had so much fun with that last week. So the PP, which reminds me, the PPP has gone through. That's all. Everything's been signed. Processing is yet to come. But thanks for those who participated. But everyone had so much fun with that, seeing each other face to face. We're going to try and put that together so that this Wednesday we can sit down, chat. There's apparently there is a way in which, and we probably won't be able to do it this week. This week, this is just a trial run. But at least with this week, we're going to look to see if we can access. There's a function that will allow us to break you into smaller groups. So after we all come together as a large group, we can have fun breaking you into small groups, and we can do it by any of a number of different means and different assignments. But then that way we can put you in a small chat room of your own, of maybe just 4 to 6 people, and turn you loose to just chat to each other that way. Because obviously if we're all together and there's 60 or 70 of us, there's only so much we can say or do. But to be able to see each other face to face, to talk in that, would be excellent. So Ben, we may put you to work. You may be down in Miami, but we can put you to work. That's for sure. Oh, couple things there. Jennifer says, let her know if you need mass. Sounds like a trip to Castle Church Brewing may be in order. They are doing pickups. Yes, if any of you live out that way, toward UCF and on the east side of town, Castle Church Brewing is one of our ELCA congregations. It's a church and a brewery together. Pastor Jared Witt is the pastor there, and if you are a beer drinker, and I'm not a huge beer drinker, but I do like dark beers. They have some excellent porters, but they're doing pickup, so you can get a growler and go get that and bring it on back. But good folks, they really could use your support right now. Let's see what else. Dropping off food for the food pantry. Amy Nelson called me. She wasn't able to be online today because of our charitable work and giving. We were able to extend $500 for the senior food pantry, which that the Winter Park Police run. So both of the senior citizen food pantries have been stocked up. The Meadows is still in need, so Officer Javier is going out there to get more information, but we're likely to look at doing something at the Meadows, and particularly if this lifts, of maybe getting the sandwich ministry going again and getting out there, because the children are now at home with their parents. And while the kids can still get food through the school, the parents, particularly if they're unemployed right now, don't have the same luxury. And that's one of the things that the government understood with the PPP program, is by extending that to churches and nonprofits. What was the phrase that I heard? We're the invisible net. Churches and nonprofits help the people that the government is unable to help directly. So as in this coming week, as we lift up what ministries we've been doing already, ways in which we have, through your giving and action, have been able to support others, my challenge is going to be, let's rise to the occasion and see if both in giving and action, we can generate that amount that we've received and give that back into the community to those who are in need, to those who the government checks and the government support can't reach. That's the calling of the church, and I think that's our challenge in this. But yes, definitely bring more food for the food pantry. There will be other places, including the Meadows, where we can direct that to make sure our local food pantry stays stocked up. Let's see. Could we sponsor a food truck to go out there? And by out there, I think you mean the Meadows. That would be a distinct possibility. Absolutely. Again, too, we probably should talk with Officer Javier once we know the need. I think it's great when we can do that as a partnership, like we did with the flag folks and the food truck down at the ER for Florida South. But that's a brilliant idea if we could take a food truck out to the Meadows and see how many folks we can feed with that. So yeah. Let's see, what else do I have here going on? Need to mention, because I promised Amy I would mention that update as far as the food pantry. Well, do you have questions, comments? Like Mark said a little bit ago, I think in watching the video, the organ sounded much clearer. If you looked at Jerry Fritz's videos that he recorded, I think it was Friday or Saturday, much clearer sound. So I know Jose is going to be doing some new recordings to take advantage of that. But how are things going for you? What ideas do you have for ministry, or what questions do you have of what we can continue to do? Because it's Monday. And as we all know, to say that it's Monday explains a multitude of sins. Well, while you're thinking, I did notice a note that I had here. Was having a conversation with one of our folks who tunes in for worship. This is one of our distance folks, not one of our local folks, and she enjoys watching it with her family. And one of her daughters, and one that Carla and I happen to be quite close to, told her mom that she wasn't going to watch worship anymore. And when I asked why, I even wrote it down. She said, I don't want to hear about COVID-19 all the time. I would like 1 hour where I don't hear about it. And then she told a story. She was talking to her grandpa on FaceTime, seeing how grandpa was doing. And somehow his time serving in Vietnam, and he was Army infantry, how he navigated being in a war zone 24/7 is he was really struggling at one point, and he went to his captain. The captain said, you need to go talk to the chaplain. And he said, you need to get your butt in service. And the chaplain did a weekly Sunday service, but that was the 1 hour during the week where someone did not talk about their last mission, what happened in it, what the last time the camp was overrun, what was going on in the news. It was 1 hour on faith. And I took her point quite deliberately Sunday in my sermon, in that it's important that despite what the news is saying, and despite how all this feels, the impact is undeniable. But COVID-19 doesn't define our lives or our faith. Faith in Jesus Christ is not shaped by COVID-19. Faith in Jesus Christ in being the church we respond to the need created by COVID-19, because there will be something else. This, as strange as it sounds, and much to the dismay of CNN, someday this will pass. But then there will be something else. So what defines us as church is not COVID-19, it's Jesus Christ risen. So that was a good thing for me to hear. That kind of was an Anvil moment. And so as we start to move ahead and whatever changes that brings, a food truck at the Meadows, all these, more mass, these other opportunities that are going to emerge. What can we do to assist folks in the congregation who are out of work, either through the pastor's discretionary fund or other things? Our response is that we are the church. So that was kind of my aha moment of the weekend, when I was told that on Saturday. So I pitched my sermon and started over. So yeah, as you have ideas, let's find ways in which we can respond to God's blessing in preserving us as a congregation, and how can we turn that into greater service to those in need, and be that invisible net in our neighborhood. So, all right, well, we are coming up at 10:40. How is the pastor's discretionary fund doing? Shirley might know possibly. I know it has increased somewhat. We try and keep it at a minimum balance of about $1,500, $1,600. And so there was a while there at the end of last year where we stopped any expenditures out of it, just so we would have that amount in case we came across a major emergency. I think we may be closer to about 3,000, which won't go far. But at this point, I've only had a handful of requests. I know that's going to change here in the coming weeks, just because the economic impact is not going to be over just because we're reopening. I'm hearing it like for the Disney and Universal folks, they could be closed anywhere. They could reopen as soon as July or as late as January. I can't imagine it going till January, but the needs are going to be there. A lot of small businesses, even with the assistance that came out, particularly some restaurants, just are not going to survive this. Can we donate our Thrivent $250 towards the food truck? Shirley's going to get a total on that, and a food truck for the Meadows. I would ask for two things. One, we can talk about that tomorrow. I'll pass that on to Amy, see what Officer Javier finds. But then the second thing is I need a point person for that. Staff is pretty much swamped as it is, but if there's someone who would be willing to work with Officer Javier, and I'm trying to remember, I'm going to be talking with Steve Beamer later. Steve helped coordinate the food truck with Halal guys for working at the hospital. Let's get Steve involved, and since he is our deacon of outreach, and let's see what we can do to make that happen. But definitely we'll need a volunteer who can kind of take point on all these different things. So, all right. Don't think the parks will be open at full capacity until January, but probably to limited operations. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. And we'll save that one for another day because it's quarter till. But yeah, if the parks reopen, yeah, it may be just starting out with people who are staying in the hotels to just Florida residents only, and then domestic and then international. So it could be very interesting with that. But this has been fun. The time goes by so fast, doesn't it? I mean, I think it just kind of shows how much we appreciate getting together with each other and being able to share some time. So, Jennifer, yes, let's come up with a Thrivent action plan, an application, so we can start encouraging folks to use that. And we'll talk about that at staff tomorrow. So, oh my goodness, my friends, time flies. So thank you so much for your time, your enthusiasm, your great ideas, and tell other folks if they are interested in these ideas to come tomorrow, and we will talk more. So let's close with the Lord's Prayer, shall we? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks for being here this morning, and keep coming back.